The Undercover Brellas are one of the most scrutinized and looked down upon weapons in the game. The main weapon is just called absurdly bad. But you know what? It's not. And on top of that, the Kensa Undercover has an insane kit. So today, I'm going to teach you how to use the Kensa Undercover Brella, the most underrated support. Now, before I go further, I know a lot of people don't know what support actually is in Splatoon, so I'll quickly explain it. A support weapon generally fits 3 checkboxes. Number 1, they're a weapon that helps to gain map control. These are weapons that paint fairly well, and the objective is to give more space for your team. The more of your turf is covered, the more room your teammates have to move in. Support's job is to make sure you have that map control so your other weapons can move around freely. Second up is kits. Supports generally have a sub and a special that are made for helping its team. Specials are the most important examples. Typically things like bomb rushes, 10 missiles, and most importantly, ink armor are really good support specials because they enable your team to move and take space. Since we've established that supports are good painting weapons, this also means they get a higher output of these specials, meaning you'll frequently get specials that can enable your team to move in. As for sub-weapons, this one more just kinda depends on preference, but typically things like bombs are very good for this, since they allow the weapons to pressure things outside of its range. A lot of support weapons have weaker fighting power, so having something like a bomb that can help control space is very useful for it. Finally, supports are generally pretty good at staying alive. Zap and Junior are great examples of this, as they're very fast weapons, Zap having a very fast strafing speed, and Junior being very quick to swim away from things, or having high sustainability. Kunder's example of this is to do with its shield, as it can keep it alive while it paints. Supports generally have to have lower deaths on the team, since if they die, no one's getting the paint control or specials to enable their team moving in. Supports going down is one of the most important kills in the game, so if you play a support, you can expect to be targeted by the whole team. Kunder certainly fits into this dynamic. Its paint is definitely undeniable, and its kit is very good for support. Torpedo is a nice bomb to poke, and ink armor is the special you want on a support weapon. However, it's its mobility aspect where it changes. Rather than having solid fighting power with its mobility like a Zap, or just overall really good paint and mobility like a Junior, Kunder trades that in for having a decent sustain aspect, its shield. Kunder's shield allows you to be able to take fights, not with the objective of winning them, but the objective of stalling them. You get to waste time while people shoot at your shield while you get to paint for armor. It also allows you to paint in areas that are being contested. Snipers patrolling an area can make a Junior and a Zap stay away from it because they can't get picked off. Kunder has the ability to paint over that and move out of the way once its shield gets sniped off. The shield allows it to play differently than every other support and take a lot more risks and engagements. Stalling fights is really useful as it'll create opportunities for your other teammates to take advantage of. Okay, so let's say you do have to take a fight. How should you be doing 1v1s as Kunder? Well, there's a few things to keep in mind. The first and most important thing is to make use of your sub-weapon. Throwing torpedo or rolling it can allow you to have a huge advantage in fights. The main weapon only does a maximum of 40 damage, assuming you hit all 4 pellets. Torpedo being rolled along the ground can do 60 with a direct hit, and 35 on the outside hit. If you throw it, it's another thing that has to be shot down, then they have to shoot down your shield just to shoot you. The second thing is about shield management. Not a lot of people know this about Brella, but when you drop shield on any Brella weapon, not just Kunder, it starts to regenerate the shield HP at a rate of 0.5 HP per frame or 30 per second. It will also fully regenerate if you get a kill or assist. This means if you drop shield for a bit, swim around, and pull the shield back up, it will have regained health that it took damage from, allowing you to block even more damage. Main weapon-wise is pretty simple. Point your shield at them and shoot. Outside of the times where you want to drop your shield to try to swim around to regain HP or use your torpedo, you're mostly going to be keeping that shield up to protect yourself. There are a few things to keep in mind though. First of all, avoid jumping against chargers or any long-range one-shot weapon. Kunder's shield is actually so small that when you jump it moves slightly and exposes your head hitbox, so chargers can actually kill you right through that shield if you're a bit uncareful. This usually requires being a bit far away and preferably high up, so for fighting shorter or mid-range weapons it doesn't really apply as much. It's not that much of a hurtbox being exposed, it's really something mostly just Charger can exploit. Secondly, remember that the shield shows how much damage it has by how much of the enemy ink is covering it. This sounds obvious, but it can be really easy to not notice your shield is about to break because Kunder just has so little. Once it starts getting low, you want to swim away as soon as your shot ends. You can begin to swim, of course, right after the shot ends, but if you do a second shot, right as your shield is breaking, you're going to be exposed for a bit before you can swim away. So right before your shield is about to break is when you want to start swimming away, unless if you think you can get the kill before you'll get killed. The last thing I want to talk about is matchups. Typically, you want to avoid weapons with a bomb and good ink efficiency. Weapons like K-Shot and Junior, if they have the bomb available, can quickly break your shield since bombs one-shot it. More mid-range weapons like H3 and Dually Squelchers, while having a bomb, are way more ink heavy and can't afford to throw one often because they'll run out of ink. Additionally, slower weapons have a much harder time breaking your shield since they have to take a bit. Finally, an important thing to note is weapons do a lot of different damage to the shield. I can't cover all of them, but generally some things like shooters and sloshers have a harder time breaking it, while stuff like blasters and chargers will have an easier time. Blasters can also shoot around it. This mostly just comes with experience. Over time, you'll learn the weapons that you like to fight and the weapons that you don't like to fight, and you'll be careful with the 1v1s you do decide to take. This doesn't mean if you see a shooter, it's all of a sudden gonna rush him like a frontliner. You still don't deal a lot of damage, even if they take a while to break your shield. So it's not a free kill, it's just a more likely 1v1 that you can take. You should still have backup and a plan ready. The most important thing to remember in fights is you always benefit from drawing them out. It's not your job to get a kill a lot of the time, it's your job to stall. And every time they're spending shooting at your shield is time you're farming armor off them and they're wasting their time. Next up, I want to talk a little bit about positioning. Support positioning usually isn't too complicated. You want to be somewhere near mid or the objective, or around your team in order to help them with fights. You generally want to be painting the area in front of them so they have places to move into. And when you push up, you want to be careful so you don't immediately get picked off, since you have to maintain your own survivability. The difference with Kunder compared to other supports is your positioning can be a little bit more in the open. Preferably, a good position would be one that is next to cover. You can peek out ahead of cover and shoot with your shield to protect you, but you want to be able to duck right back into cover when your shield gets broken or low. This takes full advantage of Kunder's protection, which you always want to be able to do. Being able to paint untraditional areas and poke choke points other supports can't dream of being able to paint is part of what makes this weapon good. The other thing to note positional-wise is when you're poking Torpedo. If you're throwing Torpedo, it can often depend at who you're throwing at to get value. Painting weapons like Dually Squelcher will just shoot it down without even noticing, and you've just wasted 65% of your ink tank accomplishing nothing. On screen now is a bit of a chart to show which weapons are better at poking Torpedo at. As you can see, weapons that are typically slower or have to hit a direct shot or lose some kind of charge are the most effective ones. This is typically the backliner class. Not only do you get to bully them by being able to paint in their sight lines, but you also get to poke them from a distance and make them lose their charge. Charger players and Splylings hate this thing. Every time they have to shoot it down, they have to charge their weapon all over again. The last thing to note about thrown Torpedo is that you want to do it from different angles. If a Charger player has to turn 90 degrees to shoot a Torpedo, that's already way harder than having to shoot one in front of it. It's not often you'll be able to throw torpedoes directly behind people, but if you do that, it's even more effective. Basically, the more they have to turn to shoot it down, the more effective and longer it's going to take them, meaning you'll get more value from it. To sum up positioning, it's similar to other supports, but you want to take advantage of your higher survivability more. Don't get too greedy and position like a frontliner, but you can position a little bit further out. Playing next to cover is the most helpful tip I'm going to give in this section. You really want to be able to duck in and out of battle to be able to take fights and then go back. Poke an effective position to paint and then go back. Go somewhere to throw a bomb and then go back. You want to be able to apply pressure while keeping yourself alive. That is the main goal of this weapon. Last up, I want to talk about gear. Kensa Undercover Brella usually has a few abilities that are really good with it. Last Ditch Effort is the main one. It allows you to paint longer with your main weapon, throw more torpedoes, and recover ink faster. It reduces the downtime, and you can see this on a lot of builds, especially on zones. Special Charge Up and Sub Saver are two other good ones. Faster armors and more frequent torpedoes. Fairly simple. Last up on the recommendations is Swim Speed Up. Swim Speed Up basically allows you to swim faster, which helps for your survivability, poking in and out of cover, etc. As a general note for all builds, there are 3 utility subs in which players generally always run one sub of all of these. This is Quick Super Jump, which makes your jump out a good substantial amount faster, one sub of Bomb Defense, which helps with a lot of different things to get into here, and Ink Resistance, which gives you 10 frames when you touch enemy ink before you start taking damage, which is great against main power-up weapons and not getting killed in one less shot as often. There you have it, a simple Kensa Undercover guide. I really do believe that this is the most underrated support in the game, and it has a lot of utility. I hope to see more people picking it up and giving it a fair shot. This was my first full weapon guide that I've done in a video format. I have guides on Brella and Explorer that are written that you can find in the description. And finally, thank you guys so much for watching. If you like my content and want to support me, please consider subscribing, as I'm working hard to put out more competitive content for the game. That all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.